네. 자, 녹화를 하고 있는 오늘은 2026년 6월 15일 오후입니다. 네, 제가 지금 샌프란시스코에 있어가지고 한국보다 살짝 뒤에 있는데요. 오늘은 샌프란시스코에서 멀리 저 서울에 계신 승주님과 그리고 저희 AI 팟캐스트에 몇 번 나오셨죠? 김민석 대표님 모시고 한번 재밌는 톡을 진행해 보려고 합니다. 그 민석 대표님 때문에 제가 한 열흘 전쯤 베이에 왔어요. 와서 대표님이 여기 암트러프러녀들 지금 재밌는 일 너무 많이 한다. 굉장히 뜨겁고 그다음에 이제 제가 또 바이올로지 쪽 사업에 관심이 많으니까 그쪽도 한번 좀 프론티어에 있는 사람들이 재밌는 일들을 하는데 다 만나보면 어떻겠느냐라는 말씀을 주셔가지고 저희가 지난 열흘 동안 너무 많은 분을 만나 뵀어요. 프론티어 랩에 있는 리서처 분들, 20살, 21살의 정말 젊은 꿈꾸는 창업자분들, 예, 그리고 뭐 투자자분들, 그리고 중간에 계시는 큰 회사에 계시는 그런 분들, 그래서 뭐 너무 많은 러닝들을 얻었고, 다 한번 커버를 해보고 싶지만, 뭐 미디어 레귤레이션에 걸려서 못 나오시는 그런 분들도 많아서, 한번 찬찬히 소개를 해보도록 하겠습니다. 그 첫 번째 순서로 굉장히 흥미로운 분을 모셨어요. 네. 위스컴이라는 회사에 이 졸단 타일러라는 분이세요. 졸단, 인사 한 번만 하세요.
네, 여러분 안녕하세요. 저는 조단입니다. 네, 저는 비스컴 파운더 있어요. 네.
네. 네. 한국말을 좀 하시지만 한국어가 그렇게 막 편하시지는 않기 때문에 저희 오늘은 저희 사실 AI 프론티어가 할 수 있는 어떤 공헌점으로 이 실리콘밸리와 서울과 그다음에 중국의 어떤 프론티어 AI를 좀 연결하면 좋겠다라는 나름의 그런 목적의식이 있었는데 그 첫 번째 순서로 저희 샌프란시스코와 서울을 한번 연결을 해보도록 하겠습니다. 그래서 오늘 그 대화는 영어로 아마 진행될 거고 사이사이 조단이 한국어를 뽐내는 시간도 조금 있을 거예요. 근데 이제 영어, 한국어 중에 편한 그런 이야기로 시작할 테니까 자, 한번 슬슬 시작을 해보도록 하겠습니다. 자, welcome everybody.
저도 불러주셔서 감사합니다.
네.
저도 몇 번 나왔는데 김민석입니다. 샌프란시스코 와서 이제 AI 스타트업들이 이제 아무래도 집중되어 있고 되게 좁은 땅덩어리에 많은 AI 스타트업들, 프론티어 랩들, 그리고 여기에 투자하는 투자자들이 모여있는 되게 특이한 공간이어서 저도 한 2달 넘게 여기서 지내면서 만난 되게 재밌는 친구들도 많이 있고 그런 이야기들을 노정수 대표님께 좀 드렸었고 이제 같이 와서 재밌는 친구도 많이 만나고 아마 가능하다면 이 팟캐스트에도 좀 소개를 드리고 싶은데 그 중에서 좀 가장 먼저 소개드리고 싶었던 친구 중에 한 명이 졸단이었고요.
맞아요.
네.
맞아요. 야,
그 이유는 아마 이제 오늘 팟캐스트에서 여러 가지로 좀 풀어볼 텐데 졸단만큼 웬만한 코리안 아메리칸만큼 한국어를 하면서도 한국에 대한 문화를 되게 잘 이해하고 있으면서 본인 AI 회사를 굉장히 매출도 그렇고 제품도 그렇고 그 회사를 되게 잘 키워가고 있어서 이 이야기를 한국 어디언스들에게 좀 전달해보면 어떨까 싶어서 저는 졸단을 좀 강하게
맞아요.
추천했습니다.
Yeah. Yeah, welcome to the AI frontier, Jordan.
네,
Yeah,
네.
welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. 오늘 진짜 신나요.
맞아요. 네, 우리 지금 졸단이 우리가 여기서 만난 사람 중에 제일 재밌고 그래서 So actually I asked Matthew that who would be the most interesting and most impressive guy here, and Minsok's the first choice was you.
저요?
Let's go with the Jordan. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Jordan, I just want to ask you your backgrounds, would you share the brief background you are, how you have an interest in industrial design, how you studied in Korea.
Yeah. Your
Yeah.
introduction, please.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. So 저는 한국말만 반, 영어로만 할 겁니다. So yeah, like studied in Korea, 홍익대학교 공부했을 때 인더스트리얼 디자인 공부했어요. 그 다음에 United States 다시 갔어요. So I was working at Honda and doing car design, and that's when I realized, like, okay, well, I should maybe take my talents elsewhere. Ended up going to NVIDIA right after Honda. So at this point, I realized at NVIDIA, state of the art at the time were things like convolutional neural nets, GANs, really early signs of images being able to be generated, right? This was a very novel technology at the time. So I saw where that was happening, and what my background was is in industrial design. So I saw an opportunity here of like, wait a minute, I think the way that these models are going to improve are going to fundamentally change how I do my own work, which was drawing cars, rendering cars, doing this by hand in Photoshop. This technology was a very clear kind of solving a pain point which creatives were spending a lot of their times doing instead of actually being creative. So that was kind of where the core idea began, was coming from the world of car design and seeing an opportunity there. And yeah, and then I kind of just was, I made a Reddit post about this and then it went really viral on Reddit actually. And that's how I built the conviction of like, oh, I should just do this full time.
Mm.
And I had about 8 months of savings at the time
Mhm.
and just kind of like, yeah, lived off that. And my co-founder, you guys saw downstairs. So yeah, we've known each other since like 5th grade. And then we just started building this company. Yeah.
I see, I see. So it was in the 2020 when you decided, okay, let's found the company, with this idea.
Yeah.
So 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
2020.
2021. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like right when COVID started.
Right, right. So it was actually when we were having the GPT-3, right?
Yes.
The language model was not that perfect, but we are having a lot of the image.
GPT-2 Playground.
Right,
And
right.
there was the DALL-E came out like 2022 or
DALL-E
2021.
2021. 20,
Yeah,
21.
2021.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there was like, yeah, Disco Diffusion before that and like Stable
Yes.
Diffusion a little bit before that. But
Mm,
yeah, around that time. So
Yeah. Got it, got it.
What is the Reddit posting like you wrote, and what is the reaction? Because you said that like you got a conviction for starting a company.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
you working at Nvidia, like a
Yeah.
pretty good job. So,
Yeah.
like, what is the moment you feel like, okay, if this like is the what customer want, I definitely do that.
Yeah.
What is the moment for that?
Yeah, so like, yeah, I just made like, 제 혼자 웹 애플 만들었어요. 근데 그 다음에 I just went to Reddit and was like, oh, like, guys, like, 여러분 이거 만들었어요. Like I made like a web app that can like render your sketches. And that was like the post. And I was like, oh, I made this. Like I made this myself. And then I went to sleep and then I literally woke up and had like thousands of upvotes. People were like, oh, this is cool. Like, wow, how can I access this? Like,
Yeah,
and I had work that morning.
yeah.
So I was like, oh, wait a minute. I can't like, I was like, oh, I gotta like call off work today. And then I started working on this.
Yeah. So actually, we have a lot of questions about, alongside your journey, your entrepreneurship journey.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but before that, let us just introduce what your company is doing, because the audiences needs some understanding. So
Of course.
let's just talk about your company business.
Sure.
Yeah.
So let's see, where do I begin? So, people listening, the chair you're even sitting in was started out as a drawing or someone's idea somewhere. And this is known as going from paper to production. So that process of taking something that starts out as a drawing or an idea and then bringing that to the real world. That is kind of what our tool is really focused around. It's like, how do we enable designers who have ideas and authorship, essentially allowing them to manifest their ideas, allowing them to actually hold it in their hands. So that's kind of the tool suite and the problems that we're trying to solve. And we found a lot of traction in areas like automotive, footwear design, industrial design. These are kind of the core pillars in which our tools function in. Yeah.
So the mainly what kinds of the artifacts are mainly being
Yeah.
it's
So
mainly mostly about in the car design or the shoes and bags. What are the most infrequently generated images?
yeah, like cars, shoes, furniture, everyday objects, things that are just like around your house.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of intention behind these designs because these are people that were already designers or aspiring to be professionals.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Can we ask that, if you don't mind, the revenue scale?
Oh.
How much of an investment have you secured so
yeah.
far?
So I can't share exact revenue numbers.
Okay.
How much we've raised around $50 million to date.
50.
Yes.
So
50 million.
around 800억 won. It's a huge amount of money.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
I think like you are helping a lot of like industrial designers to amplify their capability inside of their companies. Like, would you share how your product can help like the workflow or their like capabilities with
course.
your product?
Yeah. So let's see. So like before VisCom, right? you're having to draw something and manually go in Photoshop and then understand how to take that rendering
Right.
and place it in a 3D software.
Mhm.
And that just was very timely.
Mm.
And now what people are able to do, one way I like to think about it is they're able to fail faster.
Mhm.
So essentially beforehand, you can imagine a programmer, they have what's called like a compiler to tell them if the code is working or not.
Right.
But people that design for the physical world, they don't really get a chance to understand if it's something they want to commit towards or if it's working until they get the physical prototype a month later.
Mhm.
So we're basically allowing designers to not only explore more ideas, but to understand which ideas not to explore.
Mhm.
Because beforehand, it was
Mm.
really hard to get that insight. So our tools are essentially allowing them to do those things faster,
Mhm.
which inherently allow them to then understand what not to like commit towards. So that's kind of one way. And then let's say in the footwear context, you're designing a shoe, you're getting through your iterations, a month later, 2 months later, you get the prototype.
Mm.
Now you can kind of go straight from, and I'll share some visuals with you guys, but from, paper to an actual 3D printed shoe in your hand the same day.
Mhm.
So like that kind of stuff is what really accelerates the ideation process, but the development of products in general. So yeah.
So traditional like industrial design takes a long time for iteration. Your
Yeah.
product actually accelerate this process
Mm.
and like help industrial designers to figure out multiple ways and
Mm.
figure out finally find the best design for the company.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So actually, we are living in the era of ChatGPT and Claude.
Yeah.
And Claude and ChatGPT is literally doing everything.
Yeah.
So if I just ask some drawing and transform it to define the 3D sketch or something,
Hmm.
they are actually also capable of that thing.
Mm.
So why should we choose the Viscom over the other frontier models?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So, the way I think about it is it's more than just a single function,
Mhm.
right? It's this idea of owning the entire process of I have an idea and now I want to actually be able to hold it. Now, at that point, and we were talking about this earlier, it's like the mission is the mode at that point. Like
Mission is the mode.
yes, the mission is the mode, meaning that our desire to really allow designers to go from
Mhm.
end to end,
Mhm.
that desire alone is what allows us to have such levels of focus that is almost, I would say, too small for maybe like a frontier lab,
Mhm.
but too big to ignore.
Mhm.
So that's kind of this dichotomy that we find ourselves in where we're very specially placed, where we're super oriented around people that design for the physical world
Yeah.
and have a very particular focus on our ICP. So, that's kind of how I like to look at it. Now, things can always change, but that's how I like see the future, like our level of focus
Yeah.
and that mission being the moat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting.
Mm.
I really like the sentence. The mission is the mode.
Mm.
Yeah. So even though the big frontier models providing the similar functions,
Mm.
but the community, your service as a community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's highly meaningful.
Yeah, exactly. The community, yes. Communities are hard to copy.
Communities
It's,
are
yeah,
hard to
yeah, it's really hard to
Yeah.
copy community.
That is actually aligns with your first posting on Reddit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, your mission.
Yeah.
It's actually resonated in
Mm.
Reddit community. So
네,
okay.
community 항상 생각했어요.
Okay.
네, 네.
Okay. So all right. So
Oh yeah, I think like mission is mode is definitely resonating to me as well. For as a early stage startup founders, they might ask you, how did you formulate this kind of thinking? Like when you actually like, I think like as you have multiple experiences from beginning, like how did you formulate this kind of like perspective? Like mission is mode. Would you share some moments? You
Yeah,
actually, like,
Yeah, I think because it was very personal to me. I think one thing to avoid, or like I tried to always avoid, was like trying to do something for the sake of being a founder. Like I was never trying to start a company. Like that wasn't my goal. Like my goal was like, oh, I personally am just spending so much time. It was like annoying. Like so I felt like I was trying to solve something that was very personal. And coming from industrial design, I was building a tool for myself. So that's kind of how I was able to build this perspective. It's like, I want to solve this problem for myself. And then that's what led me to kind of like going down this path. So yeah, I would say having a very a very big problem that's close to you is what kind of allowed me to have this perspective.
Yeah. Following up the discussion, you know, like as a founder, you say like a mission is mode, and how do you like spread your thinking to other employees and have a same mission and then work for this? How do you actually structure your company and workflow, and how do you spread your thinking?
So is there any sentence
Yeah.
that is describing your mission? Do you have any mission statement?
No, I always say this to everyone. This is kind of crazy. Like, so this may sound crazy, but like I always say, like, if God didn't make it, hopefully one of our tools did. Like it's basically saying, like, I want the world to essentially reflect the possibilities of our tool. So like you should go to the store and like, oh yeah, this is like made by Viscom, right? Like, it should feel that way. So I think just getting people excited about the physical world getting exciting again. I think, you know, a lot of things are so digital. We see our screens all day that it's hard to find signal in the digital world to me. It's like the next frontier in question is now, okay, not how realistic, but how real can you actually make it? That becomes the new, I guess, question and signal that people are looking for. So, yeah, that's kind of where I think
Interesting.
it's very interesting for folks.
So let's get back a little bit back to the past when you just founded your company. So you said you started in 2020.
Yes.
2020, looking back, we didn't have a ChatGPT yet, and the GPT-4 not yet, and maybe at the time was convolutional neural network, and we had a GAN or stable diffusion. Stable diffusion was the way
A little
later.
Yeah.
So what type of AI technology have you started with?
Yeah, we were using some of the convolutional neural nets you mentioned, particularly the paper Pix2Pix. Actually from Park Tae-sung. He went to KAIST. He was like very smart guy. We sat next to each other, or like we sat kind of close. I would see him sometimes during lunch, but I was always nervous to say hi. So I was like, I'd like just wave to him. But
say hi to Park Tae-sung.
Park Tae-sung 안녕하세요. 아무도 나중에 뭐 같이 먹자. 근데 뭐 어떻게 하면 안 돼? So
Pix is
yeah. So yeah, Pix2Pix was the paper, and then that was just super inspired. Like that was crazy inspired. Like so, I don't know if you guys know BERT. Like that was like the biggest language model at the time. That was like so futuristic, but now it's like so old. But that's kind of where we were at the moment.
Yeah, right.
Pix is kind of precursor of control that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like it was trying to do what ControlNet did, but in a different paradigm.
Right. And then in the Pix2Pix was the first technology you leveraged upon. And then next is, could you please tell us about your technology transition over time?
Yeah. So Pix2Pix was the fundamental thing that fit our mission the best, which is using drawings. Because our users already know how to draw. So that made up for a lot of the gaps in the models. So then naturally, I think, so then Disco Diffusion came out.
Yes.
Because people started realizing you could do text-based diffusion, meaning that you could use text to help guide the diffusion as the images are being generated. So that was kind of a huge, that was insane. It was like, wait a minute, you're telling me I can use words to essentially create an image? Like that was wild. So I'm thinking, let's see. So that was like 2022. Then Stable Diffusion came out. Stable Diffusion 1.5. First it was 1.4.
1.5, yeah.
That changed everything. And then we just kept going. So then I think like Flux, a bunch of other models on Stable Diffusion 2.5. It kept going and going. And then things started really accelerating. And that was like new models every week.
Right.
But yeah, that was like the kind of timeline.
Yeah. Is your product still dependent on the Stable Diffusion, or you just in the transition to the modern model?
It's like kind of a mix of all of them now.
Okay.
They all have their own special cases and uses, right? Like I think how old something is should never be the judge of if it's useful, right? I think so. People get so caught in like the newest thing all the time. Oh, the newest thing must be better, but I think sometimes the older thing has its place still in the modern day.
So Gary.
So we still use it in some areas where we think it makes the most sense.
Curious about how you actually, you should not only focus on technology, but also eventually you should like satisfy your customer with the greatest like product. How do you keep the balance between technology and product, and how you actually help your team members to dog food your product?
Yeah. So that's interesting. So I think, I think a lot of people fall into this trap where you start from the technology
Mhm.
and then you search for a problem.
Right.
Whereas like
Right.
you should start from the problem and then ask yourself, okay, like what technology can fix this?
Mhm.
So I think we always start from problems
Sure.
first, like the pain points. Like what are we really trying to solve here? So we start there. So that's how we kind of avoid that.
Mhm.
And one thing we've done is hiring designers internally. So we have car designers, footwear designers that actually work here.
Mhm.
And they are the ones testing our tools before it goes into production.
Mhm.
So that's how we're able to kind of, I guess you could say, like dog feed our product is by hiring our customers
Yeah.
internally.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Got it.
So yeah, there's a car guy downstairs, and
Yeah.
everyone's like using our tool inside. Yeah.
I see.
In the context of, I'd like to give a question. In the context of dog fooding, do you manage design debt? I mean, nowadays we talk about cognitive debt because there are many huge, vast area of exploring space, latent space. So we have to choose something or select something with taste, but that causes overwhelming, you know.
Yeah.
So could you
Roger.
talk about that?
Yeah, so yeah, it's interesting. Like, because now you can make so many things that there becomes a new problem. It's like, okay, like
Right,
now
right.
what do I pick? Like, which one's which one's the right? You see this with code. Like, you're generating so much code now that it's like, how do we review this properly? And design kind of has this, but I would say it's not as bad because it now becomes more about your eye. Like, how do you spot what matters? Like, and that's on the designer. So I think that's a good thing. It's a good thing to lean on the designer to make that choice because you don't want to really. I personally don't think you don't want machines telling you what looks good all the time. There's something very human about like why food tastes a certain way or
Yeah.
why like music sounds a certain
Yeah.
way. It's like that's us, like people. So we really try to lean on the designer to make
Yeah.
that choice. So yeah, it's interesting, and I think giving the tools to not feel like such a slot machine, but feeling more like an actual tool, like I'm in control, and like there's a reason why I'm doing a certain thing.
Yeah.
That kind of mitigates creating so much slop, like a lot of stuff, because a lot like more doesn't always equal better. So we sometimes think it's about the qualitative nature of the little bit of things you're doing. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
kind of like
I
how I
think
think of it.
that answers the question.
Yeah.
But my question is, have you developed some kind of scaffolding tool for designer in that context for dog fooding?
Not really per se. I think it's such a new problem that we're kind of exploring it right now. Like we're thinking about it like right now. So it's not as much as a problem as making sure the output matches their intention. Like that is usually the core problem that usually drives creating a bunch of things. Because the only reason sometimes they're making so many is because it's not getting it right in the first 5 or 10 tries. So that's one way I've seen that being developed, but we're still thinking about it. It's like such a new concept.
Yeah.
But necessary.
So let me actually, the reason why Matthew and I chose you as our first guest in the Valley is that you have a strong connection between Korea and the States. So I'd like to ask a question about what brought you to Korea. When was it, and what made you come to Korea?
Yeah.
So I'd like to ask about the life in Korea.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That was fun. Let's see.
When was it?
Yeah, like actually in high school, 뭐 저였을 때 카이스트 들렀어요.
카이스트?
Yeah, 친구한테 들렀어요.
카이스트?
네.
The school?
제 카이스트 학교.
Oh,
When you were in high
High
school,
school.
you heard
yeah,
about
my
Kite.
alma mater.
아 진짜요?
예.
오, 진짜 똑똑해요. 똑똑한데. 그래서 뭐 친구한테 들었어요. 근데 I was like, oh, Kaist, where's Kaist? And I like look up Kaist and I was like, oh wow, it's like Stanford, but in Korea.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, but I don't think I could like do that. But design 항상 좋았어요. So I was like, design school in Korea. And I was like, 홍익대.
어.
So at first I did a little bit of design school in US at CCS. And then I was like, oh, like we had a lot of like 한국에서 뭐 유학생들이 많이 있었어요. So I was like, oh wow, they're so good at design. And I was like, wow, design, like 어떻게 진짜 잘했어요? Like why are they so good? And I was like, oh, like we're from Korea and like 여기 왔다기 전에 뭐 학원 했어요. I was like, oh, 학원 뭔데요? So like I heard about this and I was like, 와, 한국에서 진짜 가야 돼요. So I just like went to Korea and then I stayed there. 뭐 어디 살았어요? 뭐 신사동 살았을 때, 뭐 잠실 살았어요. 그 다음에 뭐 대학교 가서 뭐 인더스트리얼 디자인 공부했어요. 네, 근데 뭐 시간 갈수록 좀 한국말을 배웠어요. 근데 친구 많이 많아서 네, 오늘까지는 아직 친구 있어요. 네네네. 근데 yeah, and then like let's see, but yeah, like 한국 살았을 때 뭐 진짜 재밌었어요. 네, 항상 뭐 네, 시간 뭐 순대 진짜 가장 좋았어요. 순대 항상 먹었어요. 근데
순대?
네, 순대국. 네, 근데 한국 음식 뭐 문화가 정서 네, 다 좋았어요. 그래서 시간 갈수록 like I like got really accustomed to like like the like Korean mindset and in understanding how talented like engineers were, particularly in Korea, compared to the US. I like just the working style and the working ethic, I think was very special to me.
Yeah.
So then when I came back to the US, I was like, oh, okay, like, wow, there's like a gap here. Noticing that, I was like, wow, like why are they only just staying in Korea? But then I noticed there's like Taesung. He was a international guy from KAIST, and I was like, oh, interesting. So I just kept going back and forth between Korea and US and making friends, and yeah, it was just a very like natural thing. Yeah.
So could you please just elaborate a little bit more on the gap you just felt, between the why the Korean guys, behave like that? They should behave that way. That is the right way. But you just mentioned the gap. Please elaborate.
To more color for the question, you mentioned that Korean people are smart, work hard, and then have a really good work ethic. So like, what actually are the barriers do they have internally? What do you think about that?
Yeah.
Because you have many friends.
Yeah.
맞아. Yeah, I noticed this like, and I understand it now after going to Korea and being an international student and like 나도 이렇게 기분했어요. Like so I was like, oh wow, I understand like how they're feeling, and I think sometimes it comes down to just having not only the information but the confidence that they can actually do that. Like, because I know it may sound kind of crazy. It's like, wait, what? Like Silicon Valley, like these startup, like what? California, like why would I go all the way there? I can just do that here, right? But I really do think it comes down to one, being slightly open-minded, but understanding that, oh wow, like what I'm capable of doing is actually super special in a different context. Like Korea is so small, and the moment you come to California or somewhere even bigger like the US,
Right.
your mindset, you're like, oh wow, there's a lot to go around here. There's a lot. There's actually this is a very big, there's a lot of things to do here, and the way I approach things is actually very unique. Like a lot of people, especially in the West, like Americans, they don't really like think this way. Like it's a lot of people in the US don't even have passport or even like traveled super far. So their perspective is also very narrow. So the moment you kind of come in with a new perspective that's maybe not so traditional, it's even more appreciated versus because everyone in Korea is so smart, like very smart. So the competition's crazy. Like it's like crazy.
Yeah.
So I think like, yeah, there's sometimes just taking that leap, and some of my friends have done this, and you guys are even like early examples of this, right? So I really do think there's this kind of, it's the mindset, really the mindset. Yeah. But it's changing fast, I think, these days.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, most of the younger generation Korean, they speak the perfect English.
Oh, yeah.
And they are more self-confident and more self-assertive than the generation like the Matthew and the it's not Oh,
No,
yeah.
no,
I'm
like,
trying to be young.
Yeah.
yeah, we're almost saying
Yeah.
Gen Z. Yeah.
So I think that your context is right. So for as a Korean, we are really, really smart enough, and our discipline is really good. So maybe we should be more self-confident on ourselves and be brave
Oh, 그렇지.
in a global context, right?
네. So yeah, I really do think that's it. Because yeah, I've had many friends now. From college, yeah, are now working in the U.S. and they knew just like a little bit of English at first, but then they just got really good really fast too over time.
Right.
So, but yeah, I really encourage.
Yeah. So when you meet Korean entrepreneurs just coming from Korea to San Francisco,
Yeah.
please, help them.
Yeah. Please contact me, or like I'm very open to
Yeah.
chatting, and
Yeah.
I love these things, and yeah.
This channel is famous for AI engineers and researchers. I know that your team is hiring. So if you are seeking very smart and hardworking Korean talents, it's an opportunity for you to little bit brag your startup.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. So, yeah, we're definitely hiring right now. So if anyone's, software engineer, even product design, doing design, any kind of engineering, even like the business ops, right? Like how to really build a like sales team, let's say in Korea or in Asia. We're hiring for all these kind of roles.
Yeah.
So would love to, connect, and feel free to reach out to me.
Yeah.
Just my name at viscom.com, and that's it. But yeah.
Awesome. I think like a lot of like Korean talents, we're gonna apply and send a message to Jordan soon.
Yeah, for sure. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
근데 가면은 어디서 있어야 돼요? 거기 베뉴는 뭐예요? 사람들이 만나러 간다 치면 그냥 일반론에서.
근데 일반론에서 막 관광객처럼 오시긴 어려울 것 같고요. 제 생각에는 여기서 서로 도움이 돼야 되니까 졸단에게 뭔가 도움이 될 수 있는 뭔가 개발자다, 혹은 디자이너다, 혹은 이 분야에 관심이 있다. 그러면 진정성 있는 이야기 가지고 졸단한테 리치아웃 해주시면은 졸단이 좀 리플라이 할 수 있지 않을까요? 막 관광지로 비스컴이 될 수는 없는 거였을까요?
저희가 졸단과 이 첫 촬영을 하는 이유도 졸단이 한국에 대한 애정이 정말 높아요. 그래서 왜 코리안 엔터프라이너들 그렇게 똑똑하고 괜찮고 엔지니어들 좋은데 왜 더 큰 마켓으로 안 나오냐라는 이야기를 하면서 많이 도와주겠다는 얘기도 했었거든요, 이미. 저희는 사실 두 번째 만나는 건데. 네.
그래서 지금 얘기 듣다 보니까 일종의 이게 지금 메시지를 전하고 프로보케이션을 하시는 거잖아요. 사람들이요, SF로 이렇게 도전해라라는 메시지를 주고 계신 것 같은데, 이제 그랬을 때 막막하게 갈 때 물론 조단도 찾지만 일반론에서 이제 SF에서 서바이브 하려면은 어떻게 해야 되는가가 약간 궁금했던 거죠. 청취자
근데
입장에서.
저는 오히려 반문하고 싶긴 해요, 승규님.
예.
There is no answer.
No answer. 오케이.
네, 맞아요.
왜 answer를 찾으려고 하면 안 되고
Yeah.
그 answer는 자기가 만들어야 가는 거여서
맞아요.
그거에 반문하고 싶어요. 좋은 질문이 아니라고 생각합니다.
맞아요.
오케이. 알겠습니다.
So it's actually very Korean way. As a Korean, in order to do something, we are actually looking for some textbook.
맞아.
What is the best practice?
Uh-huh.
So let's just follow it. So
Yeah.
I think that the Korean culture is half in a mix of half of Japanese or the half of American one.
Yeah.
I would say that we are definitely different from that in China.
Yeah.
We are half Japanese and half American, I guess.
맞아. Like, the 어떻게 말하는데? Like just the like willingness to try new things. I think. Yeah. It's a little bit there for sure.
Yeah. So
오케이,
인성님이
알겠습니다.
얘기한 대로, 회원님이 얘기한 대로, if somebody is really, really eager to do something, they can find a way.
Right.
Yeah.
맞아요. 여기 오면서 느낀 점은 둘다뿐만 아니라 낙관주의가 좀 많은 것 같아요. 한국에서는 이거 한다고 하면 망하면 어떡해? 왜 이렇게 하니까 잘 안 될 거야? 이런 이야기인데 여기는 그거 어떻게 하면 더 키워볼까? 망해도 괜찮아. 또 하면 되지. 될 때까지 하자. 이제 이런 마인드셋이 훨씬 많아서 파이를 키워서 나눠 먹자. 이런 마인드셋이 엄청 많은 낙관주의가 좀 많은 그런 문제라고 생각합니다.
사이즈 오브 드림을 물어보고 싶네요. 저번에 정선님이 말씀하셨던 것 같은. 여기서 꿈을 크게 키운다고 했었잖아요.
Let's see.
So actually, you said at the beginning of our conversation, so your company, the funded with the 50
Yeah.
$50
Yeah.
US dollars,
Yeah.
which is so 800억 원.
Yeah.
800억 won is a huge amount of money in
Mhm.
Korea.
Mm.
And I think that, the normally in the startup community in the Bay, this is we are saying it that the first is a pre-seed and then seed
Yeah.
and then Series A and Series B.
Yeah.
And in Korea, we do have a similar,
Structure.
Stages.
structures and
Yeah.
stages,
Yeah.
but the numbers are totally different.
Yeah.
Normally
Scale.
here,
Yeah.
you guys have 1.0.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
1.0.
yeah, let's just
Right.
begin with that type of conversation.
Mm.
So actually, you started the company in 2020,
Mm.
but maybe the 5 years already passed.
Yeah.
And a lot of painful things, and
Yeah.
definitely you didn't secure the fund automatically.
No.
You did a lot of effort on that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's very
so-
painful.
Yeah. Can you just tell us about from the beginning of your company and
Yeah.
and you actually your first fund,
Hmm.
you're funded by the Nat Friedman.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
he was part of the. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, he's
Exactly.
kind of a figure in the market.
Yeah.
So,
코파일럿
maker of,
만든 거죠.
maker of
Yeah.
그
코파일럿.
코파일럿 만드시고
Yeah.
AI 그랜트라고 하는 거에서 많은 AI 스타트업도 발굴하시고
Yeah.
지금은 그 메타 슈퍼 인텔리전스 랩에 계시고
Yeah.
yeah, MSL.
지금 네 페이스북 있어요.
This
네.
is the highly famous figure.
그렇지.
Could you please tell me about the story?
Yeah.
How you came up with your first funding?
Yeah. So it's interesting because of that Reddit post.
Mm.
Like we started growing community on Discord,
음.
and two people. So Basis Set Ventures, they were one investor, and then AI Grant, Nat Friedman, they were the other ones. So Basis Set actually led our very first paycheck, $500,000. That was the first one. That was Basis Set. But then right after Nat came and with this thing called AI Grant, and I was like, what is this like? First I thought it was a scam. I was like, AI Grant?
Yeah.
AI Grant? Like
Not fun.
yeah, it sounds fake. It sounds like fake. I was like, oh, okay, this is real. Okay, cool. So we got into that, but so Chong from Basis Set, that gave us the original 500,000. She sent me an email saying like, hey, I saw your Discord group is growing. Like, I'd love to meet you for coffee.
I see.
So I brought my laptop and I was like, hey, this is what Viscom does. Like, we can render your drawings. And she was like, oh, this is great. And yeah, the next day she was like, oh, I can start you off with this much. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And then, yeah, the rest is history there.
Yeah.
You know, like AI Grant is very unique, like bench. It feels like a YC for AI companies.
Yeah.
And like specifically for the first bench, like of AI Grant, there are a lot of like great companies, including Viscom. What are your experiences for AI Grant?
Yeah, that was really good. It was such a great experience, especially the first batch. Like, it just felt very genuine. Like, everyone was just trying to figure out their thing. Everyone was early in their idea. So just having that common ground of like, oh, wow, we're all so early. We're all trying to figure this out. Like, that was amazing. It felt like you were truly at the like frontier of something big happening. So that was really cool. So I think just that environment was like very special. And it was really fun. Really, really fun. Yeah. It was literally in this basement, random basement in San Francisco. Yeah, it was cool.
What are the things you learned from other founders or like the program? What is the most helpful for that stage?
Was it really helpful to secure the next round of funding or
Yeah, I would say the one thing I learned was not to be afraid to pivot your ideas. Like it's okay to change your mind. Like we were with Michael and Amin that were now it's Cursor, but they were doing like a CAD
They did.
like AI tool like
Right.
during the grant batch, and then by the time they were done, they're like, "Oh, we're gonna do a coding tool," and I was like, "Oh wow, that's such a big change! It's such a big change!" And then the rest is history, right? But like that was just that moment. I was like, "Oh wow!" Looking back, I'm like, "Oh yeah." What if they never changed their mind and they were so stubborn of like,
Right.
no, I have to make CAD. It's like, no, they just
It's
like,
my mission.
yeah, no, they were
Yeah.
like, no, it's okay. Like we can change ideas if nothing's working.
yeah. So
That reminds me of a Runway. Runway once started author tool, but they change
Yeah.
it to the develop model. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, yeah, that's
So since Seungjoon mentioned the model, so are you planning to create your own model also?
Yeah, totally. So we're currently working on this. We're trying to understand what it is we want to solve with it. Like, what does it actually mean for us? Like, not just simply training another image model that's a little bit better, but something foundationally new. Like, very like it's something not just in one modality even. So we're thinking about this right now. Can't tell too much about it just yet, but this is why we're hiring. Yeah, so we're hiring for
Yeah.
exactly this kind of things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There are a bunch of like AI prosumers, including like designers and like decision makers working in like large company in Korea. Would you just glimpse your blueprint for your product you are working on, and then like how you
Yeah.
can actually help like a Korean manufacturing companies? Or
Sure. So we work with many enterprises. For example, like Hyundai all the way in Namyang, like companies like this that are just like building physical products. We help their designers get a lot more out of their time. So now you're no longer having to, I would say, spend as much time, wasting on prototyping. You can just do those prototypes within a few days versus months. We had this the other day, the CEO of GM talking about Viscom. She mentioned like from weeks to hours, which is like a very massive time shrink. So yeah, I would say one, they have to have an internal initiative themselves of like, okay, like what is our AI strategy as an organization, which a lot of companies are doing. So that's kind of one way. And yeah, those are the kinds of companies I would say that have really found the most success with Viscom. People that are looking to accelerate their designers or enabling other folks to be part of the conversation of design. Yeah.
Right.
You talked a lot about like community. Like I heard that like you're focusing on user side and then like helping them to use your product well, which is obviously a product lead growth and like bottom up strategy. Like how like industrial designers or students in Korean universities like approach like and use Bizcom.
Yeah, the university. So we give Viscom for free to all schools. And yeah, schools like Art Center, CCS, Hongikdae, like these places are, the reason we do that is because that's when you're a student, your workflow is extremely malleable, meaning you're trying a lot of things.
Right.
So then once you get internship or a job, that's when you bring your tools with you. And then that's when Viscom gets spread into an enterprise. So students are using this in a way where, of course, they're cautious because you don't want to lose the fundamentals of pre-AI.
Yeah.
I think our generation is very special where we learn things pre-AI even. So we kind of know like certain things that new generation just will never have to learn. There's no point. Which I think could be good and bad. So there's this kind of like interesting in between right now where it's like some students are very accepting of these things, but some are very against AI, which is just, I think AI has had a really bad PR outside of Silicon Valley and tech, which people don't realize, I think.
Right.
Like a lot of Western students are very against AI actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, today I saw the one tweet. Yesterday was in the Stanford graduate ceremony.
Right.
Yeah. There was
They're walking away
Yeah,
with
walking
Sundar
away.
Pichai is trying to talk. Yeah, like these kind of things is very common right
Mm,
now.
I think so. So let's shift the gear a little bit toward into the landscape of the Silicon Valley AI entrepreneurial scene.
Oh yeah.
Because you know that SpaceX got IPO'd yesterday,
Oh wow.
and Anthropic, OpenAI, and their valuation is insane.
Yeah.
And Matt and I met a lot of entrepreneurs here, and they're asking numbers.
Yeah.
Valuation and the amount of money they are raising.
Huh.
Those are literally really, really high.
Yeah.
So I think that this kind of a fever goes around in Bay Area.
Yeah.
So I'd like to ask the general the landscape about the Bay Area entrepreneurial scene. Do you think it's good? How do I wouldn't find out in the right expression, but do you think it's good enough? So, what do you think about this in the general landscape?
Yeah, the feeling of this, like this whole situation. Yeah. I think it's like
Do you think that the all the valuation is justifiable?
Oh yeah, yeah. I think some of it definitely is,
Mhm.
especially like Anthropic.
Mm.
Like these guys have created intelligence as a service. Like it's like it's literally like electricity, but for your minds. Like
Mm.
it's like it's gonna be really weird to not have it. If like when Fable went away, I was so sad. It was like, oh, I
Yeah.
was like, wow, I could feel what it like. Wow, they took away such a like they took away my like dishwasher or like something I really need. So yeah, in that sense, I think it's extremely valuable because if we can automate the economy, that is a huge, insane unlock. Like an example of this is Qatar, the country. 95% of their workforce is done by migrant workers. And then the 6% is just regular citizens. But, and most of the people in Qatar, they retire by the age of 50 because they found that they can just have a lot of migrant workers kind of, you know, provide for their pension so they can retire. So I think once you have agents doing a lot of the economy, a very similar thing will happen here. And it's like, that is the ceiling is unlimited. Like it's beyond what the current valuation is. This whole nature of people are talking now about post-labor economics, like this world where working becomes almost optional. And I think that's really justifies the valuation. And you start thinking about in that future, like 2030, 2035, it's like, okay, wow, yeah. Like almost undervalued maybe, I would say. Like
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
think people here are really believing of this kind of future, like and that they're the ones building it.
Yeah.
It's a little bit scary, of course, but that's just the nature of really big change.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So I really do believe it, yeah, for the most part.
Yeah. I partly agree with your perspective, but you know, as an old man, you know, many of people in my generation, you know, okay, that company, you know, the revenue is not that high.
Yeah.
And
Oh, there's
a lot of
definitely
risk.
yeah, okay, yeah, there's definitely there's a huge category of startups that are what we call like this is a kind of like English slang, but LARP, like LARPing, meaning like, oh, I'm pretending to like just more so doing it for because everyone's doing it. Like,
Yeah.
they're not actually interested in the problem. And there's a lot of these kind of companies, of course, but those ones, of course, I think, you know, they come and go. I think every wave has its version of this, like mobile, internet.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah, I think that there are going to be, you know, a lot of, you know, some type of a sifting through phase. So you know, the good companies will emerge and the bad companies will go away.
yeah, a lot of noise.
Yeah.
Trying to find signal and noise. Yeah.
So can you get us some, you know, data point about the, you know, you know, the stage of the company, the pre-seed and the seed and the Series A and Series B. So
Yeah.
definitely that we are actually seeing some standard. If you get into this amount of a revenue, you'd be valued at this valuation and you can raise this type of money. So can you just, you know, give us some, you know, the ballpark of the valuation scheme of a Silicon Valley startup?
Yeah, so depending on it really depends. So do you mean just in general?
Yeah,
Or-
just
yeah,
in
yeah,
general,
yeah. So
just in general.
oh man, these days like it's so random. It's so hard to know. Like some people can just
Just to give us some case.
yeah. So okay. So someone like you know, I've seen some companies raise. Oh, recently, oh my gosh, this is a crazy one. Someone raised $9 million at 500 million post valuation.
9 million with
Yeah, that was I
500.
think the Mechanize guys called Mechanize. Yeah, they raised 9 million at 500 million post, which is like very good. Like that's a very like low dilution and really high valuation. So things like that are happening right now for sure. Let's see. I've seen some just purely idea, like $4 billion valuation, but it's just the idea. Like, but I think because of their background, they can do these kind of things. But I don't know. I don't think these valuations and these things are really good indicators of if something will be good or bad. It truly comes down to the founder and the problems. But yeah, it just shows it's a reflection of how crazy the current environment is. Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah, it feels
Yeah.
like a lot of like nowadays not ups and downs, definitely nowadays ups and ups.
yeah, ups and ups. Yes, ups and ups. Exactly.
So how long do you think is, you know, this type of, you know, high stage is sustainable? Maybe 2 or 3
No,
more
I
years?
think even longer. I
longer
think it's
than
gonna go longer than we
Yeah.
expect. Yeah, and if anything, maybe this is just the new norm. Like I don't know. I'm really bad at predicting the future.
Okay.
And you have met multiple like industrial designer in different industries, and you have seen how their role has been changing. What do you define the like future role and future role of designers, and how their job description will gonna be changing?
Yeah,
Because of AI.
yeah, because of AI, right? I think it's very interesting because I think it really amplifies the importance of the human touch, right? Because I think, with AI, it kind of gets rid of a lot of the tedious tasks that are just, you're repetitively doing. So the designer is now more so focusing on things like, why does this look good? Or how does this look good is not as important. Really having a good sense of taste is extremely important. Now, taste can mean many different things, but really being able to spot the signal and the noise and why the audience you're trying to design for would find that valuable. So these more judgmental oriented tool like skill sets are becoming more and more important. And you might see someone whose job is on design team is to curate, mood boards. Because now data curation in that sense become really important because the models can learn from that. But knowing how to curate those images is becoming the skill. So it's like these new skills that are kind of forming in that's also really interesting. So yeah, that's kind of like one way to think
So
of it.
your product is going to help the designers to nurture their taste and automate many like tedious works and focus on impact.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Maybe
Yeah.
my question is relevant question. So, well, 한국어로 일단 질문을 해보겠습니다. 오케이. 그 자료를 좀 살펴보다 보니까 조단의 어떤 작업에는 긴장이 좀 있다고 느껴졌어요. 뭐가 긴장이 있다고 느껴졌냐면은 iterative process, creative process is iterative. 그거를 굉장히 믿는다는 느낌이 있었는데 실제로 제품은 그걸 압축하는 것이거든요. 근데 이게 약간 그 둘 사이에 긴장이 있다고 느꼈는데 그 부분에서 좀 물어보고 싶었어요. 그러니까 이거를 그 원래 배경인 산업 디자인에서 이거가 굉장히 중요하다는 거를 몸으로써 이해하고 있는데 AI의 상황은 자꾸만 위임하고 자동화하는 거잖아요. 근데 방금 전에 민성님이 tedious job 또는 뭐 directory work 뭐 이런 거는 위임하는데 사실은 그것만이 아닐 수 있거든요. 현재 위임의 상태는. 그랬을 때 보호하고 싶은 게 있는지 아니면 흐름을 완전히 바꿔야 되는지 조류를 따라가야 되는지 그런 고민이 있지 않을까라는 걸 좀 물어보고 싶었습니다.
So let me just paraphrase his question. So his question is that the designing thing is really really laborious and it requires a lot of time.
Yeah.
But what you are providing to the designers is actually compressing those processes to make it really really quick.
Yeah.
So it's kind of in a contradiction,
Yeah.
creative in a process, iterative way. But AI is really doing the things in a compressed way. So his question is mainly about how do you manage those two contradictions.
Well, actually, my question is about, I think you are true believer of creative process is iterative, but delegating that work seems like omitting something in that process.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I know what you're saying. So it's like we're not trying to iterate, we're not trying to offload, I would say, the creative process. Like being actually creative is still up to the person. Like it comes down to the drawing, how they're communicating their thoughts. There's just different avenues in which they're able to express creativity. Creativity in the older definition maybe had certain practices attached to it. But I think now there's new practices that are being attached to the word creativity. So creativity no longer just means painting or reading. It means more things now because of the technology. So I think there's just kind of like more definition being added to the word creativity now that are being expressed through these kind of tools like Viscom. Yeah.
So it's moving, right?
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
evolving. Like just how language evolves
Yeah.
over time. Like Hangulmar, English, like it changes over time even.
Yeah.
Like it's the same thing kind of happening
Yeah.
with designed.
Yeah, it actually reminded me of the talk we had yesterday. Even though we are not coding at all,
Yeah.
but engineering is still required.
Yeah.
Even though we are coding in English, but engineering still resides.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your time, Jordan.
Yeah.
And we're gonna
Yeah.
release you
Oh.
from this
Also, yeah.
application.
Yes, no
Yeah.
worries. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you for having me. Yeah, of
thanks
course.
for hosting us. It's,
Yes.
Yeah.
And, 송준님, 예, 진짜 반가웠습니다. 예,
반갑습니다.
예, 아마도 나는 뭐 한국에서 가면 우리는 뭐 만을 같이 만나고, meeting. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, okay, sure.
네네네, 맞아요.
야.
오케이.
자, 그러면 이제 조단을 보내고 민성님과 우리 셋이 마무리를
아, 예,
하도록
마무리하시죠.
하겠습니다. 그래가지고 저희가 원래 이러한 녹화를 굉장히 여러 개를 하려고 했는데 조금 그 프론티어 리서처들은 말을 당연히 못하고 네. 그리고 벤처 캐피탈리스트, 뭐 앙트러프러니어 이런 분들을 7월 초에 ICML이라는 학회가
예,
있어요. 예,
그렇죠.
그래서 굉장히 좋은 분들이 한국에 많이 방문을 할 것 같아요. 그래서 7월 5일부터 약 한 12일까지 정도 계실 것 같은데 그 기간 동안 굉장히 많은 파티들이 열리거든요. 많은 회사들, 심지어 미국에서 간 회사들까지 코엑스 근처에 있는 수많은 카페들과 뭐 음식점들을 빌려가지고 조그만한 파티들을 막 열고 있으니까
놓치기
한국에
아까운
계신-
타이밍이네요.
맞아요. 한국에 계신 AI 엔지니어 분들, AI 리서처 분들, 혹은 이미 창업을 하신 분들, 그리고 한국에서 펀딩을 많이 받으셨더라도 또 이쪽 동네 밸류에이션 스킴이 워낙 달라서 예. 또 특히 한국에 관심이 있어하는 회사들이 칩 회사들, 네. 그리고 소프트웨어 오케스트레이션 하는 소프트웨어 인프라 관련된 거, 뭐 GPU 오케스트레이션이라든지 뭐 VLLM이라든지 SDLM 같은 그런 류의 하는 것들도 굉장히 관심 있어 하는 것 같고, 근데 상대적으로 모델 크리에이션은 별로 관심이 없어 하는 것 같아요.
네.
예.
이미 끝난 문제라고 보고 있는 거
맞아요. 예. 물론 이제 페이블이 딱 못 쓰게 해가지고 모두의 이제 국가적인 문제가 돼서 저희도 소브린 모델 막 얘기를 많이 하고 있습니다만은
끝난 문제라는 거는 이제 따라잡기 어렵다 그건가요?
맞아요. 그건 던딜이라고 보는 것 같아요.
레시피는 공개되었고 그 레시피를 따라하기 위한 컴퓨터랑 데이터랑 인력에 대해서 그 게임판에 들어올 수 있는 플레이어가 몇 안 된다라고 보고 있는 것 같습니다.
네.
오케이.
그리고 또 한 가지 이제 굉장히 크게 남은 섹터가 AI 에이전트 서비스. 이제 무언가 완벽한 형태의 컨슈머 서비스가 나오기 전이라고 생각해요. 사람들은 챗GPT나 뭐 클로드가 모든 걸 다 끝냈다고 생각을 하지만 전혀 그렇게 생각을 안 하는 것 같아요. 이제 겨우 시작이다라고 생각하는 것 같고, 그렇게 따지면 이제 제가 많이 여기에 계신 로컬 분들에게 한국을 팔면서 하는 얘기인데, 그게 탄생한다면 컨슈머 비즈니스의 원형이 탄생한다는 건 한국일 거다라는 얘기를 많이 하고 있어서 예, 그런 분들도 이번에 많이 미팅을 만들 수 있을 것 같아요.
실제로 중국이나 한국을 많이 관찰하고 있는 것 같아요. 그런 쪽으로 좀 민감한 분들은.
네. 그래서
그렇구나.
저희한테 저희 그 AI 프론티어에 이메일을 하나 만들어 놓을 건데 거기로 연락 주시면 저희가 또 그 이번에 가는 굉장히 많은 벤처 캐피탈과 또 회사들과 미팅을 많이 했거든요. 그래서 커넥션들을 잘 갖고 있어서 한번 저희도 연결을 하면서 또 어떤 딜들이 이루어지는지 한번 볼 수 있으면 좋을 것 같아요.
네.
아주 흥미롭습니다. 그러면 정사님 잘 돌아오시고 한국에서 뵙고 민성님은 계속 추진해
저희-
주시길.
에피소드 이 정도에서 마무리하도록 하겠습니다. 네,
예.
감사합니다.
감사합니다.
안녕히 계세요.